You're watching Reality Check. Tonight, in election season, the government's handling of the Ukraine crisis has inevitably acquired a political edge. Stung by criticism that it's not doing enough to help rescue Indians stranded in Ukraine, videos of which have flooded social media, the government appears to have gone into damage control mode. In somewhat of a reversal from its earlier responses, where partly it appeared to blame the students for ignoring multiple advisories to vacate Ukraine, the government now seems to want to convey a sense of urgency and empathy. The Prime Minister, taking a break from campaigning in the Uttar Pradesh elections, holding a series of meetings with key aides, one in the morning and one also in the evening. Soon afterwards, ministers deputed to countries along Ukraine's borders to help rescue stranded Indians. All hands on deck, as the communication from the government said. These are the ministers. Jyotiraditya Scindia, sent off to Romania, Moldova. Kiren Rijiju, sent off to or on his way to or deputed to Slovakia. Hardeep Singh Puri, deputed to Hungary. VK Singh, deputed to Poland. State governments have also been asked to advise families in their states of the government's efforts to bring back students. The government also underscoring how they've been more responsive than other countries, releasing this document, which shows how countries like the US, China, Britain and so on did very little to help evacuate their citizens from war-torn Ukraine compared to Indian efforts. Also, India saying that as of February 28th, totally there have been 6 flights which have evacuated about 1,400 people. About 8,000 Indians had already left before the invasion, but that still leaves an estimated 10 to 11,000 Indians still inside Ukraine. Now, some of those flights were received here in India by government ministers, cameras on hand to capture their welcome speeches that acknowledged the Prime Minister's role.
Welcome back, everyone. Very happy to have all of you back safe and sound, back in our motherland. On behalf of Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, both Muralidharan ji and I are present here to welcome you back. I know you have all been through a very, very difficult time, a very, very trying time. But know this, that the Prime Minister is with you every step, the Government of India is with you every step, and 130 crore Indians are with you every step of the way.
So what's also prompted all of this? Well, mainly it appears because of viral videos like these of stranded students, which despite the government's attempts to take control of the narrative suggest that while indeed many students may have been rescued, the crisis remains worrisome. Like these images of students manhandled at Ukraine's border with Poland, which raises questions over the government's response to the crisis.
देख यहाँ कैसे मार रहे लड़कियों को।
Students have also recorded distress messages of being abandoned in freezing weather at border crossings with little or no help from the government. Like this one recorded, it appears at the Romania-Ukraine border.
हेलो, हम लोग सब रोमेनियन बॉर्डर पे खड़े हैं, रोमेनियन यूक्रेनियन बॉर्डर पे। हम अभी यूक्रेनियन साइड ऑफ द बॉर्डर है एंड यहाँ पे कुछ नहीं है। सारे बच्चे, आप प्लीज देखिए यहाँ पे क्या सिचुएशन है। अराउंड 500 to 600 बच्चे हैं और अभी तक पर डे ये लोग 150 से ज्यादा किसी को इवैक्यूएट भी नहीं कर रहे हैं। ये लोग इतनी खराब सिचुएशन है। ये लोग यूक्रेनियंस को बहुत प्रेफर कर रहे हैं, यूक्रेनियंस को भी प्रेफरेंस दे रहे हैं। इंडियंस को 1 या 2 निकाल रहे हैं एट अ टाइम और उसके 10 मिनट बाद के इंटरवल पे निकाल रहे हैं। एंड यहाँ पे यूक्रेनियंस को इतना हाई निकाल रहे हैं, मतलब इतना ज्यादा यूक्रेनियंस को एक साथ निकाल रहे हैं। दूसरा हम लोग रात, कुछ बच्चे तो शाम 4 बजे से आ रखे हैं, कल शाम 4 बजे से, और कुछ बच्चे रात 11-12 बजे के हैं और अभी तक पूरी रात -5 डिग्री सेल्सियस में उन्होंने काटी। यहाँ पे कोई कैंप्स नहीं है, यहाँ पे कुछ एरिया आप देख सकते हैं कि कुछ कैंप नहीं है, कोई एरिया नहीं है। यहाँ पे बच्चे फेंट हो रहे हैं, बच्चे गिर रहे हैं बिकॉज उन्होंने कुछ खाया नहीं है, कुछ पिया नहीं है एंड दे आर being drained of energy and everything, and आप देख सकते हैं एम्बुलेंस तक की बुलानी पड़ रही है। और इंडियन एम्बेसी या किसी ने भी कोई एक डिप्लोमेट या कोई एक ऑफिशियल नहीं है जो यहाँ पे हम बच्चों को वहाँ से निकाले या एटलीस्ट हमें इवैक्यूएट करने में इजी हो, क्योंकि इतने सारे बच्चे इजीली इवैक्यूएशन नहीं हो सकता है। देयर शुड बी सम लीगल अथॉरिटी हु शुड बी रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर दिस। और आप ये देखो पूरी रात काटे हैं, और ये भी नहीं है कि इवैक्यूएशन इजी है। आप देखो, आप ये देखिए, हम बच्चे यहाँ पे धक्का मुक्की हो रही है क्योंकि बच्चों को बॉर्डर क्रॉस करना है, और धक्का मुक्की के होने के बाद ये लोग फायर भी कर रहे हैं, ओपन फायर कर रहे हैं।
हेलो, नमस्ते। हम इंडिया से ओडिशा नेशनल मेडिकल यूनिवर्सिटी के बच्चे यहाँ पे चौक नाम की स्टेशन उजगोरद में खड़े हैं, जहाँ पे एम्बेसी की हमें कोई मदद नहीं मिल रही है। हम पिछले 1.5 दिन से यहाँ खड़े हैं, भूखे प्यासे। यहाँ पे आसपास कोई दुकानें नहीं है। हम यहाँ पे टिकट्स के लिए पिछले 12 घंटों से लाइन लगा के हमने टिकट्स खरीदी, और अब हमें आगे इमिग्रेशन भी नहीं दिया जा रहा है। और हम एम्बेसी को बार बार कांटेक्ट करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, पर वो हमें कोई जवाब नहीं दे रही, बल्कि वो हमारे यहाँ से सिर्फ 8 या 9 किलोमीटर की दूरी पर एक एम्बेसी है, पर फिर भी वो लोग कोई जवाब नहीं देना चाहते।
Now, these videos have become part of the opposition's attack against the government. Rahul Gandhi tweeting a video recorded by a stranded student saying that the Prime Minister is missing in action. Conditions of Indians stranded in Ukraine are worsening, yet Government of India is not taking effective steps to bring them home. As usual, the Prime Minister is MIA or missing in action, says Rahul Gandhi. In fact, even as we go to air, the gap between the government's advisories and ground realities remain deep. In response to the latest government advisory, which we put on the screen, this was issued today, asking stranded students in Kiev to proceed to the train station where special evacuation trains are being organized, there appears to have been a rush of students at the station. And some of them shared videos like this one claiming that they've been pushed off the trains.
We are students from Kiev. The embassy told us that we are being evacuated today, and we came all the way to Kiev railway station, and we are being thrown out of the train. They are not even allowing us in. Indian students are being attacked with sticks and stuff. I hope we get this and do something that's really important right now, because as you can see the situation outside, there are hundreds of students here. We are all being stranded. So please do something real quick.
Hundreds of students and not being allowed on the train. All right, I spoke earlier to Yashwant Sinha, former Finance Minister, External Affairs Minister, currently with the Trinamool Congress, part of the opposition. And I began by asking him that the government says that they're doing their best to evacuate Indian citizens, and yet the opposition is being critical. Why is that?
Well, you know, I also have seen reports and seen the videos which have been uploaded by Indian students in Ukraine. And their number appears to be around 18,000. Not a very large number compared to airlifts which India had done in the past. And just to mention the evacuation from Iraq and Kuwait in 1990, let me remind you that over 170,000 Indians were evacuated from Kuwait in 1990, spread over, of course, a few months between August and October. And that was a massive operation, which was personally supervised by the then Foreign Minister of India, Mr. I.K. Gujral. So India has both experience and a record of bringing back people from wherever they are in troubled zones. So the 2-3 quick points which I'd like to make is, one, we knew that the crisis was coming. We should have taken steps in time to bring those who are willing to come back to India while the airspace of Ukraine was open. Number two, even after the airspace closed, we should have, our embassy in Ukraine should have arranged for the students to leave by bus as soon as possible, or by whatever means of transport was available, to come to the neighboring countries or Romania or Poland or wherever. And third, that the government of India should have been prepared with a contingency plan to be able to do it. They have deputed now 3-4 ministers to the neighboring countries to personally supervise. Very good. But this could have been done earlier, because the students are in a very difficult situation in Ukraine.
So you're saying if it's not such a big deal that India has managed to evacuate about 1,500 students, because close to almost 2 lakhs were evacuated during the Gulf Wars.
Yeah, I just mentioned that to you. And, though elections are still taking place in UP, it will be the height of tragedy if we use this occasion to propagate that the government of India has done a fantastic job for the UP elections. The Prime Minister talking about this in his election rallies in UP is not the very good thing to do. It is the duty of the government of India. You can't claim credit for doing your duty. Of course you had to do it. So, as I said earlier, limited number of people to be brought back. All the arrangements should have been in place by now. The Indian embassy should have been strengthened in order to cope with the situation in Ukraine.
But, the government has put out a release, and they have basically pointed out, sir, that India has actually gone much beyond other countries. Other countries have left their citizens to their own devices in many instances, but India has actually proactively evacuated people.
No, that is hardly a matter of satisfaction, that we are doing better than some other countries. We have, for whatever reason, a very large number of students who go to Ukraine for largely medical studies. This was a known fact. The government of India would have known, the Indian embassy would have known that there are 18,000 Indian students in Ukraine. And just as I said, in good time, we should have made arrangements to bring them back, even if they were not informed about the hostilities and the progress of hostilities. The government of India, of course, was better informed, and therefore they should have acted in time instead of acting now when a large number of them are held up. I'm also given to understand that there are some disturbing reports that Indian students are not being allowed to cross into the borders of other countries. For instance, in crossing into Poland from Ukraine. And why is that happening? I don't know. But I'm told by informed sources that is because of the ambivalent attitude on this crisis that the government of India has adopted. That is the reason why Ukrainian authorities are not being very helpful.
I see. Interesting. Wonder if that is the case. But thank you very much indeed, Yashwant Sinha, for joining us. Let's open it up to panel. We have with us K.C. Singh, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Dr. Diksha Pandey. She's been, one of the students who was stranded in Kiev, and she's a medical student and senior resident in neurology. And also is with us Lieutenant General Subrat Saha, member National Security Advisory Board, and also last met General Saha when he was a candidate in West Bengal for the BJP in Calcutta. That's where I had a chance to talk to him. Let me start with you, General Saha, with this perception that despite now what the government is doing, now multiple meetings by the Prime Minister, bringing in flights, that it's all somewhat knee-jerk and belated. And as we heard Yashwant Sinha say that, okay, you've managed to evacuate 1,400 people, much is being made of it, but almost 2 lakh people were evacuated under the Gulf War by the government.
You see, to call it knee-jerk, I think is quite unfair, because the way the whole situation has kind of unfolded or indeed panned out, did anybody expect, things to move at the speed at which they have moved? For example, in a span of just 5 days, we are seeing the way the situation has, gone ahead. Second thing, I think a comparison with Kuwait, to do it right away after 5 days isn't, the best comparison for reasons. You had almost 2 months in which the evacuation was done.
Right.
There was opportunity to connect and evacuate by the sea route,
right,
which was the case over here, right? So we have to see the realities as they are. And
okay. So you're saying take the context.
Not for a moment am I undermining.
Yes.
Or trying to, sort of not being true to what our students are going through. That said,
right,
I think much of the agony of the students is because of the sad discrimination that we are noticing from the countries into which the students are having to go.
Okay, understood. You're saying look at it in its context. Let me just go across also to Svetoslav Yurash, who's a MP, Ukrainian MP, and thank you as always for joining us in the middle of a very difficult time for you. You're literally on the move. The sense that we're getting with our students and others trying to evacuate, are things worsening? Because right now peace talks are supposed to be going on between both countries, but it doesn't appear to have reduced the offensive in any way by Russia.
There is a full-scale war happening in Ukraine. Peace talks or the attempt at them is happening, sure, but the Russian forces are moving and pushing. In Kiev today, we've seen shells today, we've seen rockets being fired on Kiev. There's attempts to continue encircling the town from the west. I'm just back from the southern front line in Kiev. The point is, I'm moving to the northern front line. See, situation there is, it's not easy. It's not really ending in any way. There is no situation here. There's a war here. Russia's trying to destroy Ukraine, as it has said many times over and over. And that's very simply not happening. My nation is up in arms. We are arming people to try and be able to defend themselves. And basically everyone in our nation is now united to try and battle this back. And I must say that some of the Indian students as well expressed their desire to join the fight that are studying here in Kiev. I'm not sure about other parts of town. As far as Indian students in general, I mean, let me just say that this situation is shocking to everyone. Because again, nobody expects somebody to try and destroy the largest nation in Europe just as a matter of fact. This is the 21st century talking about. But again, we are joining together and fighting against this madness to try and rekindle Ukraine no matter what.
And Mr. Yurash, you're saying that there are even Indian students who volunteer to fight? Did I hear you correctly?
They express desire to. They aren't on the front lines. I just was talking with a member of my team who works with national students, and he was telling me about different students who expressed their desire to join in the fight for Ukraine's independence.
Just last question to you, because I know you're in a rush, that in this kind of situation, because we seem to be getting conflicting guidance from the government here, is it better for people like the students to remain in place, to hunker down in places like Kiev, or to try and move, westwards to try to get out?
Depends where they are. That's basically the answer to you. The situation is very fluid, and with the changing front lines every single day, it's very hard to truly make out. There are cities in Ukraine which are encircled, which are under siege, and obviously trying to get out of them will be more dangerous than staying in. And there are cities that are wide open, basically, and evacuation of which is possible. And again, we in Ukraine are only giving those who want to fight a chance to do so. Everybody who wants to evacuate and leave can leave, and there's no question about that. And the point here is that...
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. No, that's fine. Fair enough, Mr. Yurash. Thank you very much indeed for joining us and giving us a rather, I must say, chilling insight into how bad things are despite talks going on. Casey Singh, if I can just come to you, sorry to keep you waiting. What do you make of the government's response? Do you believe, as Subrat Shah says, it's not knee-jerk, or as Yashwant Sinha seemed to suggest, that partly it's been guided by this pressure from all these videos, and also because it's election season, so they have to be seen to be doing something?
Look, there's obviously a miscalculation. I don't think it's intentional. The government was distracted by the election here, and you know very well, when the elections come, this government goes 100% into it. because of that, because of distraction, I think enough attention was not paid to the US president very clearly articulating a number of times that the Russians were ready for a full-scale invasion. We thought this is just Americans ramping up the rhetoric. Now, if that was coming from the US president, we should have had a contingency plan for a normal thing that there would be an attack in the east, so only students who were in danger on the eastern side. But there should have been a contingency plan that if there's an all-out onslaught, what do you do then? On the student side, there is an issue that although an advisory was issued by the embassy, many universities said you can't leave. Students felt that maybe it is safe, we can stay on. So the advisory was not strong enough. It was not an advisory to say you must leave because we think your lives are in danger. But we should have expected that even if we give an advisory, many students will not leave for different reasons. And then the first few flights of Air India, they were charging 60,000 for a ticket. So the government was obviously late in realizing this. They should have realized right in the beginning that the fare had to be either written off or it had to be reasonable. The normal fare was 20,000. Now that Air India has been sold to the Tatas, obviously they wanted market price, whatever was available. And then government was again late in saying, we'll pick up the fare. It's a bit like the injections, COVID vaccination, where they said, no, you pay for it. Then said, okay, we'll pay for it. So that gives the impression that they were kind of deciding as they went along. And there is, I won't call it knee-jerk, I'll say they're one step behind the situation every time around. Now, rushing ministers to 5 countries is not going to help much. Those countries are not stopping people from entering. Problem is people trapped on the other side of the fence, the ones who are in Ukraine. And the Ukrainian security forces are acting because they're also Ukrainians trying to leave the country. So one, there is the mentality of a huge crowd. So the security forces don't know how to sort out one from another. And then the countries at war. So there is really very little control, which even the president will have over his checkpoints and so on and so forth. So all this should have been calculated and it should have been realized. And even now, I don't think, just finally, I don't think a final advisory is going out to them. To those, we should be saying, please stay where you are. And to the others to say, this is the nearest point, come to it. This general advisory. Okay, if you can't find it here, we are arranging buses to a nearby checkpoint.
Got it. Okay, so, so more focused advisory. Dr. Diksha Pandey, you are, I believe, still in Kiev. Is that correct?
No, sir. I'm in the northeastern city of Ukraine. That is Sumy, the more conflicted area.
Oh, I see. Okay. What is happening exactly, Dr. Pandey? Because, are you stuck there? Is the government reaching out to help in any way?
So we are stuck in a very bad way. The government is not responding. The embassy is not responding to their helpline numbers. They are disconnecting our calls. Even when they are lifting, they are not even speaking for 30 seconds. They are just saying, when we are in this city, they are saying, just stay where you are, stay where you are. Up till when we should stay where we are? There is no enough food supplies. Markets do not provide enough food supplies. People are not able to get out of the bunkers. Right now, there is heavy snowfall in Sumy and the threat is increasing. Just half an hour ago, we had a shelling in the main street of Sumy. And what do you expect us to do? What do you want us to do? You want to evacuate us when the things get even more worst. There is no responsibility. This is not India in Ukraine. The embassy title, what they have given in Twitter and different handles, that it is India in Ukraine, India and Ukraine. It is not India and Ukraine. It is India outside Ukraine. You are not providing any help to your citizens inside Ukraine.
So all calls aren't being, you're saying when you call, what happens when you call the helpline?
Yeah. Out of 5 helpline numbers, 3 people disconnect the call and 2 people do not lift the call. In spite of 27 missed calls and trying, they lift the call once, in 30 times, maybe or 20 times, and they respond very quickly. And that too, the response isn't clear. They're just saying, stay where you are, stay where you are.
And last point though, Dr. Diksha, that, when the government says that we gave so many advisories, people didn't listen, what would you say to that?
So in this country, our first priority was education. I agree to that. And there are many factors which did not allow us to leave the country. The first was education. Our university was saying that if you leave the country, if you don't come in time, and if something happens, you're going to bear the consequences, or we'll be suspending you for an year and all these kind of stuff. And embassy simply releasing advisories. What will happen if you release advisories when you're not in a coordination with the education ministry here and university here?
Interesting point. Okay. Interesting. Well, sorry that I can't say anything more than stay safe, and let's hope that there is some response or help comes to you soon. But certainly, you know, we've put out your voice and the voices of others, and so hopefully someone is listening. We're out of time. Thank you all so much for joining us on Reality Check and for watching. Good night.